Some stories live in the shadows, passed down in whispers, protected for generations.
Others claw their way into the light and demand we listen.
I'm Maya.
And I'm Daniel.
And this
is Dark Water Media.
11 people burst into a police station in rural Kentucky, shaking, sweating, armed to the teeth. They'd spent the night under siege, they said, attacked by creatures with glowing eyes that couldn't be killed.
The police believed them.
Some stories don't begin in shadow. They begin in silence. A warm summer night, a farmhouse on the edge of nowhere, and something watching from the trees.
Tonight, we're going back to 1955, to one of the most dramatic and well-documented close encounters in American history. Welcome to Dark Water Media. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Maya. This is the story of the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter, sometimes called the Goblins of Kentucky. A night of fear, disbelief, and legacy that shaped how Americans talk about aliens, UFOs, and things that don't make sense.
This wasn't some blurry photo or secondhand rumor. This was a full-blown siege that lasted hours, witnessed by multiple families and investigated by dozens of law enforcement officers.
August 21st, 1955, two families, the Suttons and the Taylors, showed up at the Hopkinsville police station just after midnight. 5 adults and 7 children, all genuinely terrified. One of the men, Billy Ray Taylor, had a heart rate over 140 beats per minute. The women were crying, the children were nearly mute with fear.
These weren't the kind of people who sought attention. The Suttons were well known in the community. Devout, hardworking, private. They didn't drink alcohol, didn't tell tall tales. They were the last people you'd expect to fabricate a story like this.
But here they were, telling officers they'd been under attack for hours. Not by people, not by animals, but by something else entirely. Small creatures, about 3 feet tall, with oversized heads, glowing yellow eyes, and spindly limbs that ended in claw-like hands.
Billy Ray Taylor said it started when he saw a large silver object with exhaust all the colors of the rainbow streak across the sky and land behind the farmhouse. Soon after, the family dog began barking frantically. Then the first creature appeared.
These beings, they said, didn't walk, they glided or floated. Their skin or suits shimmered like metal in the moonlight. They peered through windows, scratched at the roof, and seemed to have no fear of the family's weapons.
The families fired repeatedly, multiple rounds from a shotgun and a .22 rifle. They swore the bullets hit their targets, but the creatures didn't fall. They didn't bleed. They just slipped back into the darkness and returned again.
The police response was immediate and substantial. 4 city officers, 5 state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police from nearby Fort Campbell all responded. This wasn't a case they brushed off.
What they found was telling. Gun casings everywhere, holes in the window screens, shattered glass, and genuinely traumatized witnesses. But no creatures, no blood, no footprints, just the aftermath of terror.
One officer, who had medical training, checked the witnesses' vital signs. He found elevated heart rates, signs of acute stress, but no indication of alcohol or drug use. These people had experienced something that genuinely frightened them.
The police escorted the families back to the farmhouse, weapons drawn, searching every corner. They found nothing unusual beyond the physical damage and the witnesses' shaken state. But they didn't dismiss the case.
So what were they really seeing? The most widely accepted theory involves great horned owls, nocturnal hunters with glowing eyes, feathered tufts that look like pointed ears, and silent flight. In the heat of fear, especially in dim light, details can warp dramatically.
Skeptics like Joe Nickel and David Mountain point out that these owls have all the features described by the witnesses: the bulbous heads, the glowing eyes, the talons that could be mistaken for claws. When you're terrified, A 3-foot-tall owl can seem like something much more menacing.
But here's what makes this case fascinating: the psychological aftermath. Some family members couldn't bring themselves to return to the farmhouse for years. This wasn't just a fleeting scare, it fundamentally changed how these people saw the world.
The media, of course, had other plans. The next day, headlines dubbed the creatures little green men, a phrase the family never used. They described the beings as silver or gray, metallic looking. But little green men was catchier, more sensational.
That headline didn't just stick, it became part of American language. From that moment on, little green men became our cultural shorthand for aliens. The Suttons and Taylors weren't trying to coin a phrase, they were just trying to make sense of what they had experienced.
And the attention became overwhelming. Reporters, curiosity seekers, UFO enthusiasts, they all descended on this quiet rural community. The families who had initially just wanted help found themselves besieged by a different kind of invasion.
Some of them eventually left the area altogether. The price of their story became too high. But the story itself, that took on a life of its own.
Over the decades, the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter became more than just a UFO case. It became a cultural touchstone. Steven Spielberg drew inspiration from it for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The case influenced films, television, even indie theater productions.
Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official UFO investigation program, classified the case as unexplained. One Air Force major called it, quote, one of the most credible cases ever investigated. That's significant coming from an organization that was typically skeptical.
But perhaps the most interesting transformation happened in the community itself. What started as embarrassment and fear eventually became a source of pride and identity.
Today, Kelly and Hopkinsville host annual Little Green Men Days festivals. There's music, food, alien costume contests, and even speakers from the Sutton family lineage. The story that once drove people away now draws visitors from around the world.
It's a perfect example of how folklore evolves. What begins as fear becomes culture. Sometimes healing, sometimes performance, but always alive. The community took ownership of their story and transformed it into something positive.
This pattern repeats throughout American folklore. Think of the Mothman bringing tourists to Point Pleasant, or the Bigfoot festivals in the Pacific Northwest. These encounters, whether real or imagined, become part of a place's identity.
But in the middle of all this cultural transformation sits that original question. What really happened that night in 1955?
Maybe it was owls, maybe it was mass hysteria amplified by Cold War anxiety and the growing popularity of UFO stories in American media. Maybe it was trauma echoing through the dark.
Or maybe it was something else entirely. The witnesses never wavered in their accounts. They never sought profit or fame. They just wanted to be left alone.
And that consistency, that reluctance to capitalize on their experience, that might be the most compelling aspect of the whole story.
Because at its heart, this isn't just about aliens or owls or mass hysteria. It's about how we process fear, how we make sense of the inexplicable, and how our stories shape not just our understanding of the world, but our place in it.
The Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter reminds us that the line between reality and perception is thinner than we'd like to admit. And sometimes the most important truth isn't what happened, it's what we do with the mystery afterward.
Whether you believe in little green men or great horned owls, the human element of this story is undeniable. Real people experienced real fear. Real communities grappled with real questions. And that's where folklore lives, in the space between what we know and what we wonder.
If you've ever experienced something unexplainable, whether in a field, a dream, or your own backyard, we'd love to hear about it. Your stories add depth to what we do.
Drop us a comment or message, or reach out using the contact info in the show notes. And if this episode left you wondering, share it, subscribe, leave a review. Help us keep walking that edge between folklore and fear.
Thanks for joining us on Dark Water Media. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and remember, sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that refuse to be solved.
We'll see you in the dark.